All right, I know this is some of the content many of y'all have been waiting to see, like waiting and hoping and fiending for. Not Christy Sides. I apologize that that's the first image. I know that's not what a lot of you have been waiting for. But nonetheless, the Indiana Fever back at practice. You can see Dantas there and Katie Lou Samuelson and Kelsey Mitchell and Alyssa Smith. There's Caitlyn Clark. You know her? Heard of her? There's some running. I mean, nothing groundbreaking or amazing here. Working on defense, which is a needed thing for the team, right? Sliding their feet, moving laterally, all important defensive skills. Effort is an important defensive skill. Obviously, they should be fresh coming back at this point in the season after, I don't even know if I want to say a long break, but a break nonetheless. There was Aaliyah Boston scoring inside on Alyssa Smith a second ago, which is often too easy to do. I think Alyssa needs to have better defense inside the paint there. But nonetheless, you see the team back in action. You see them back at practice. And I think the last game was the All-Star game, July 20th, if I'm not mistaken. So that's 9 days. I felt like it was going to be longer because they don't play again until August 16th. Their first WNBA game ain't still for another 2 weeks or so. Perhaps they're trying to make up for some lost time, right? Like at the beginning of the season, they didn't have that much time to practice. They played 11 games in 20 days. They played 11 games in 20 days against some of the best teams in the league. So didn't have that time to gel, that time to come together. Maybe they're trying to make sure they hit the ground running when the season resumes because they have improved greatly. You know, they are 10-7 after starting the season 1-8, firmly in playoff position right now. You know, during the time off, apparently Caitlyn Clark was being a mermaid or something. This is not really my purview. Guys, I'm sorry. I apologize for those of you who were very interested in the mermaid saga. I'm not too into the paparazzi aspect of things, but there were photos shared. There you can see Lexi Hull and Katie Lou Samuelson and Caitlyn Clark in Mexico, apparently having a good time during that short break. But Caitlyn had said she didn't want to see a basketball for a while. Well, she's already got one back in her hands, or at least I'm assuming at practice. Maybe they only worked on defense and she didn't have to touch the basketball. Meanwhile, Team USA was in action against Japan. You know, of course, Caitlyn not a part of that team, but they still dominated the Japanese team. And you saw simply the size difference in that game, right? There's the clip of Diana Taurasi holding the ball up. I mean, I felt like Brittany Griner was the Billy Madison clip, you know, like now you're all in big trouble. But there was an image of Diana Taurasi holding the ball up over a Japanese player that was very noticeable. There was also a Caitlyn Clark sign at the game that was held up. Let me see if I can find that for you. It was an incorrect sign. It was a sign of her popularity, of course, overseas, right? Like Caitlyn is a very popular player everywhere now across the globe, you know, and you see this sign. It was a fan of the Japan team. It says, "You need Caitlyn Clark to beat us." So the sign was in fact incorrect. An incorrect sign held up by that individual, because as much as myself and others would like to see Clark on the Olympic team, or would have liked to see Clark on the Olympic team, there's no question the team can win it all and should win it all without Caitlyn Clark. There was actually some footage, I think, of them reacting to it as well. This is from Kareth Burke, who used to be a colleague of mine at SNY back in the day. But this was the squad reacting to the sign, apparently. You see Aja Wilson pointing and Brittany Griner pointing. They must have seen it over there in the stands. And, you know, there's no harm in them being amused by it a little bit. I don't want to relive the politics and the decision-making of what went into. Yeah, they definitely saw that sign right there. I don't want to go into what, led to the Olympic roster composition. But one thing is for certain about this Olympic team. They have a loaded front court. They have a loaded front court where when you have Brianna Stewart and Asia Wilson up front, it's going to be tough to stop. That is going to be a tough combination to deal with. They had 46 points combined, something like, 20 for 30 from the field. That's a little bit off the exact numbers, but you get the point. And those are former MVPs, perhaps, the two best players in the league over a long stretch. The Brianna Stewart reminds me a lot of Kevin Durant. I feel like she plays like he does, like KD does a little bit. And meanwhile, Asia has been completely dominant. The way she runs the floor, the way she rebounds, the way she blocks, the way she steals, the way she can hit that soft, buttery jumper. And when you put them two up front, it's going to be tough for anybody to deal with. I still think the USA guards are missing a little something. They're not that fast. They don't push the pace. They're not that explosive. Chelsea Gray had a really nice game as a distributor. She had 13 assists. But that's where you say, okay, Caitlyn Clark could be on this team. Arike Ogunbowale could be on this team. Alicia Gray could be on this team. But it's kind of a moot point because they're going to win regardless. The tallest player on the Japanese team, 6'1". The tallest player on the Japanese team, 6'1". To put that in perspective, Asia's 6'5", I believe, and Brianna Stewart is 6'4". So that is several inches on the tallest player on the other team. And, like you saw Brittany Griner out there with them. It was the size difference was almost incomprehensible. The Japanese team played really hard. They had a good game plan. Obviously, they were trying to trade threes for twos, which was the only way they were going to be able to keep up in that game. The only way they were going to be able to compete, but it still wasn't enough. And so, as it is, that was 56 straight wins, I think, for Team USA. They haven't lost in the Olympics since 1992. They're going for their 8th consecutive gold medal. Obviously, still a tremendous team. I mean, their only losses have come to the WNBA All-Star team, and you could take and make of that information what you will, right? Like, you could say, hey, that means they're not actually taking the best of the best, or you could say it's an exhibition game. It doesn't really matter. Nonetheless, the roster that they have taken is certainly good enough to win another gold medal in Paris. Meanwhile, Caitlyn Clark back from Mexico, the Fever back at practice, which I wasn't expecting to see. I was honestly caught off guard when I saw the team put out that footage today. I was not ready to react to that one, but here I am, like a superhero, giving you the content that I know you so desperately need.